many of you are joining us. For those that are inquisitive about what we do, we do these curated events all year long at CES, at Cannes Lions, at Possible, where we build programs for our members. In this year already for CES, we'll have private meetings with lead ad executives and media executives at United, at ESPN, the head of buying and media and planning, Rite Aid, Lenovo client, Omnicom Commerce, as we are pushing aggressively into retail media because our members know hardware, software, screens, and we've got so many retail members around the world now, and it's a huge opportunity to advertise where people are doing most of the consumption of product. To give you an idea, in the UK, 78% of purchases are made in store. In the US, we have 85% of purchases made in store, and the retail media business is a $140 billion business. And at the moment, only about 0.5% of that is going in physical stores where the majority of purchases take place. So we are moving aggressively into that space as our members really are doing very well there. And so join us. If you want to join us for CES, contact Noah. You all know Noah Class, Noah.class at dpaaglobal.com. And you can find out what that involves. It's basically 2.5 days of intimate meetings with other members from around the world with great brands. And then we do a private tour with our friend Michael Bassick, who used to run Assembly Ad Agency, and he takes us on a guided tour on the floor just targeted to advertising and digital out of home. So please join us. I'll give you another moment if you want to write down Noah's email. You should talk to Noah anyway. He's a great guy. Noah.class, KLAS, at dpaaglobal.com for our next. And then, of course, we do this at Cannes Lions, and then Possible in the spring, we build a curated trip for members. Thank you, Blake. We'll go to the next one. So this is what we do. For those of you that don't know, we are a very close-knit community all year long. We provide leadership and insights, empowerment, just like today, guidance, training, and we've got this wonderful global community that everybody works together and rises all ships. So these are some photos, as Mary Perella talked about earlier, of our big gathering last week. We had a couple of hundred people there. By the way, we also had almost 500 people on our retail media webinar 2 weeks ago, which was really powerful and incredible, with folks from Placer, from Sam's Club, from Omnicom, and then of course Mr. Lipsman, who is the leader in retail media around the world. Please, if you don't know, recognize this. And then the next slide we go to, we talk about how we do all that. And we do that through our summits in Canada and a global one that takes place in New York every year. All of our business accelerator tools and marketing AMP tools, industry resources. And we've built this wonderful community where everybody, three things happen. And we do three big things, I like to say. We help grow the industry, number one. Two, we help grow individual companies and accelerate the business. And three, as we're doing today, we help grow personally and professionally our individual members with training and programs like our WE.DOOH Women's Empowerment. And as we continue, I think we've got a bit of a quick video to take a look at all year long, and then a QR code at the end if you'd like to get involved. if anybody is not part of everything we do and you want to learn more, just go to this QR code. Hold your camera up. I'll count for 5 seconds as you do that. By the way, welcome. I see Joni Schmeichel's coming from South Dakota. Good to have you on board. And Ginny, one of my favorites, great smile always and enthusiasm. It's wonderful to have all of that enthusiasm as part of it. Okay, so I think we're going to launch now in our chat with Bianca, and I'm going to hand it over to Ms. Jenn Willey. Thank you, Jenn.
Well, thank you, Barry, and for all that you do and the rest of the team here, Ajay and Blake and Hannah, to help support this effort to advance women in the industry. And I am thrilled to get to learn a bit from Bianca, who is joining us. And so, Bianca, we'll be hearing from you in a moment here, and then we'll have a bit of a fireside chat. And then we're going to be focusing on what we can do to look back to leap forward for 2025. So if you haven't done it already, please click on the links that are in the chat that will allow you to download the activity guide that we created for the session. And then we'd love it if you'd open up the survey link as well. So you don't have to answer it yet, but at least that way it'll be open on your computer or your phone. And with that, Bianca, I turn it over to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I feel very honoured and privileged to be here. Very sorry I missed the party last week, Barry. I think you need to do one in London as well. So wonderful to meet everybody. And I'm trusting you can see my screen now. You should be able to see a very pink slide. So let me introduce myself. I sit here as a mother of four, as a businesswoman, as someone who spent a decade as an entrepreneur and also a decade in corporate. And for many years, I've been blending both. So I have the sort of unique experience of having fallen into entrepreneurialism, where I was just chasing ideas and dreams and feeling excited every day and achieving success by accident almost, but cyclically slamming into walls and burning out repeatedly. I fell into corporate, where then I was in a new alien environment, learning how to climb the corporate ladder. And I was a sort of older woman having sold a business with young children, thinking that I knew the ropes, knew how to play the game. But suddenly I was in a world of politics and competing agendas, and again had to learn and kept hitting walls. So I actually started to teach myself how could I maintain success and honor my own well-being and integrity, and started to turn that into books, into programs. And now I work with organizations like the DPAA, but equally with Google, with Amazon, where I host retreats, I host workshops, and I really try and sprinkle the magic that I have learned along the way of how to get into a place of doing work that I absolutely love and not falling over. So my latest book, I really describe as a love letter to ambitious women, because I firmly believe that we all have the right to enjoy the work that we do. And we should be able to soar, not struggle. And yet too many of us are really, really struggling with time, with energy, with, how do we have this myth of having it all and maintain a level of balance. So I want to just go through, I've got 10 minutes here and I've written books and books on this, but I'm going to just bounce through some key tips and tricks and just thoughts on how it is to operate as a woman in the working world today. The burnout crisis it's official. It was classified by the World Health Organization back in 2019 as a global epidemic. So this is serious. It's a dis-ease that's really impacting society negatively. And this was pre-pandemic. Since the pandemic, the stats are worsening and worsening, and we're sliding catastrophically, actually, into a place where certainly in Britain, 1 in 4 of us will be signed off on long-term sick leave. And actually the stats are worse for women than men. So 60% of women today will assume at some point in their career we will burn out. And it's higher than the statistic, which is 41% for men. And that's still terrible. But for women, we are sliding and crashing worse and more frequently and more virulently than men. There's a cost to this as well. There's an economic impact. It's costing around $1 trillion a year. The tragedy within all of this is that in the majority of cases of burnout, they're lifestyle-based and preventable. So a lot of the work that I teach is around how can we take self-agency to ensure that we don't slide down into burnout. Because yes, a lot of organizations to now have a people first agenda, and every market share letter will celebrate the people first responsibility of that organization. But actually, we need to take responsibility ourselves. I never want for 1 minute any of us to dull our ambition, because I'm never going to stop reaching for my stars. And what I have learned over the years is how not to harm myself in pursuing my dreams. And it's really important to ground ourselves in the primeval fact that actually we are wired for impact, and it's okay to want to have impact. So think back to the prehistoric days when we were in our tribe. If we weren't evidencing our contribution as being valuable, we'd very quickly be ostracized. So it's okay. Ambition is not a dirty word. And I really invite you to just revel in that ambition and don't be afraid of it. Celebrate it, reach for the stars, go higher, go further, and keep going. But just know that there's a responsibility that you have for yourself to make sure that you don't fall over. So there's a little exercise that you can do in thinking about, well, where is your impact sweet spot? And think of this as a Venn diagram with 4 different circles. And in each of these circles, I invite you to do this exercise just over the holidays. Just really think about what is your sweet spot as you look to 2025. It will tend to be a blend of what it is that you do effortlessly. So what is that stuff that you find really, really easy that actually surprises you when other people don't do it as naturally? That is your gift. That's one of your strengths. Your passions should sit in another one of the circles. What is it that you, on a Saturday morning in bed when there's no agenda, scroll through your phone to research and look at? What is it that really gets you going and is your guilty pleasure in terms of interest? That really matters too. Then, of course, your values. What is it that makes you feel you are behaving with integrity as you show up in your life? Because let me tell you and remind you, you're never going to feel a sense of fulfillment if you're ever living your life in contradiction to what it is that you value. So it's so important to do the values work. I know lots of people talk about it, but really take the time to hone in on honoring your values. Put your values in one of the circles in our Venn diagram. And then think about the needs that you satisfy. So what is it that people ask you for advice on the most? There is such gold in that question. And this is how I have turned this work, this wellbeing work, into a business, because people used to say to me, how can you work full time? How can you run a business on the side? How can you have 4 children and still go out lots and still run every day and still be smiling? How? And so I felt there was gold in there, that treasure, and I've turned it into a business. So think about that. Pay attention to the questions that people are asking you for advice on the most. One graph that's really important for us all to understand, this is called the stress productivity curve. Now, when we are in a state of healthy stress, we feel invigorated, we feel motivated, and we do good work. So think of that little rush you get, the healthy rush that's just before you get on a roller coaster, or you're about to present, or your first kiss. Just think about that little tingle of anticipation that gets you rocking and rolling, feeling in a good peak state. Now, that is where you want to be when you're doing your work that matters. That's a brilliant place. And you know it. You'll feel in flow. You'll be tingling with, I can do this. It feels great. The problem today is that we get to that peak state of performance and then we try and stay there. And we get excited by perhaps the next project, the next little work stream, the next demand, and we try and stay there and maintain that. And we're in that cortisol flow for too long. And eventually our body starts to just slide, and then we catapult down into burnout, which is when we start to feel the physical, the mental, the emotional freeze, if you like. And as we get further and further down that slide, we get to a place where we're no good to anybody. So it's up to us to really identify where we sit on that scale of peak performance and good stress, because the number one equation to remember is that for us to sustain our impact And to show up every day as we want to, and to achieve those ambitions, we have to remember that good stress is brilliant. Stay there, use it, harness it, don't shy away from it. But there has to be a blend of rest as well, because only when we combine stress and rest can we get into this state of growth. And remember that that is our default state. We want to grow, we want to expand out into our lives magnificently. So be very, very mindful of what your good stress looks like. And if it's unhealthy stress, step away from it and make sure you minimize it, shrink it. And I've got all sorts of strategies in my book and blogs, and I can absolutely answer questions around that. But understand healthy stress, how to be there, and then how to rejuvenate and rest. That is how you step into growth. So as we're looking to 2025 and we start to think about actionable goals and what we want our years to look like, and I know, Jen, we're going to talk a lot about, approach and attitude to that. But I thought it would just be useful to share with you my advice with my clients. I operate as a coach, a success strategist, I like to call myself, and how we go about setting goals that we are able to manifest. Because this beautiful quote here, this is a Carl Jung quote, is something where only you actually know where it is that you want to go and should go. And it's up to you to really hone and own your dream, to step into that place of manifesting what it is that you want. So I invite you to own it. And I have some 5 tips of how to set your goals with soul, which means there is a more higher likelihood that you will achieve these dreams as you get into 2025. So the first point is around absolute clarity. So we all use the SMART model, the specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, and timely goals. We use that a lot in our corporate environment. Use it for yourself personally. Hone into exactly what it is that you want to achieve. Get that clarity. It's so important. Secondly, add this emotional dimension. So don't just describe the what of that goal, but really think about how that goal is going to make you feel. So elaborate on the goal with all sorts of beautiful, evocative words that describe how you're going to feel. So the goal might be health, but adding a dimension of emotion can be around vibrant vitality. It can be something around expansive energy. Just really go into how that goal is going to feel with an emotional aspect. Thirdly, know your why. This is so important, and we lose this too often. It's like, I'm going to do a marathon. Why? Really hone in on the why, because it really is that attitude of 80% of success is within psychology. So absolutely connect to the why, and then you will tend to expand that goal into something that grounds into your very, very core. And again, you're more likely to be motivated to take action, to step into it. And then once you've done all that, consciously commit. So there is so much power in decision making. And in fact, my book, I start my entire strategic approach around honoring decision making. Because if we don't respect the decisions that we make, then how can we ever grumble about not achieving the goals and the ambitions that we set for ourselves? So really revere decision making as something holy and honor it with a very, very solid commitment. And then I invite you to live your vision daily. So there's so much science that proves the more we visualize something, our brains can't actually distinguish whether what we imagine is separate from the actual reality. So the more that we visualize us stepping into this fabulous place and really honor that on a daily basis, the more we're rewiring our brains, and the neural reprogramming all starts to assume that that is already done. You're in your ambition. So there are 5 key ways that I really invite you to think about planning as you set your goals for next year. And as a little plug, I have written a book. My book, Big Impact Without Burnout, is out in March next spring, and I'm starting my international book tour in spring. In fact, let's call this now. I'm starting the book tour. Here we are, celebrating what's coming. I would be very grateful if anyone would like to pre-order the book now, and I am offering as a little bundle, anyone that pre-orders the new book will also get a free audio copy of my other book, Flourish. And I would be delighted if you would follow me, just share the journey, and hope that was okay to do a little plug there, Barry and Jen. And
Great. Absolutely.
and I hope that was useful. But just please, the main reminder is that this journey to success really starts within. And I believe it's everything we so desire is absolutely possible.
Well, I loved what you shared, and I do so much of this research into these areas, specifically around how we think about work and ourselves differently as it relates to gender. But what you had talked about of two things that really stood out for me of revel in your ambition and stress and rest equals growth, because I always thought my ambition and the stress that comes along with it were bad things. And I think what's happened then is, and I know I'm not alone in this because I've talked to many of my friends who had mistakenly thought the same. And you can give us a little thumbs up or a hands up if any of you agree. What happens then is we start fantasizing about retiring so that all of the stress can go away from not having to be so ambitious. But the reality is they are good things, and that is what brings us most of our sense of purpose and joy. But it is one of those things that women, and I see this with thousands of women that are in my workshops and programs around the world, is that they feel really hesitant to climb the corporate ladder because they feel like I'm already burned out. As you said, 60% of them. And so there's this fear around what additional responsibilities are going to come along with getting that promotion and becoming the leader that they could and should be. And so I would love to get your perspective on how those of us who identify as women, and we all know gender is a spectrum, regardless of our gender, though, if we have these feelings of, gosh, I'm already burned out to begin with, I can't put anything else more on my plate. So I'm going to stay here in this role that's not as intellectually stimulating as I'd like, or not paying me as much as I deserve. What do you think we could be doing to overcome this fear and now reframe leadership as an opportunity so that we can achieve what we should, but then also find balance while we can influence others as well?
It's such a good question. And as a mother of a daughter who has her dreams and her ambitions, we talk about this an awful lot. And I'll share with you the story of me when I had sold my first business. I fell into corporate. I didn't know how to play the corporate game. So as I showed up with my people pleasing, how do I do this? Okay, mentality, it was work harder, work faster, prove, prove, prove. I, in digital marketing, was like, right, I need to learn everything. Okay. So I'm a proactive person. I like to put my energy into everything. I was like, okay, I need to learn. So I'm going to spend an hour every morning learning. So I'm working out, what do I need to read? What do I need to learn? Which different channels do I need to lead? I mean, I was literally subscribing to Exchange Wire, Programmatic Weekly, Campaign, like, this is what I need to do. This is what I need to do. And of course, it's overwhelming, and you can never actually get on top of all that stuff. I kept trying, and then I kept working harder. I kept working harder and harder and harder. And I mean, I really was an absolute fish out of water. And I was 37 years old. I was learning how to play the corporate game, and I was in a very, very tough environment where I was with part of an agency that was growing 30% year on year. So there was an expectation for everyone to deliver, everyone to show up, everyone to be in the office. And I was trying to show up to the best of my ability, but still single parenting 4 children, commuting an hour and a half a day to get into the office. And I was doing bonkers things. Like, I would go home, put the kids to bed, collapse into bed myself, set my alarm for 2 a.m. to try and work between 2 and 4 a.m. to quickly just cram in a few more slides and get the deck done. I know, bonkers. And then, go back to sleep, then get up and get on that treadmill and go, go, go. And of course it didn't work, and it couldn't sustain because I kept slamming into wall after wall. So, and I was dabbling at that point with really trying to learn how not to burn out. And I would try stuff like the physical stuff. So, oh, why am I ill? Why do I keep ending up? Because I was getting hospitalized with immune collapse cyclically. This happened several times over about a 10, 15-year period. I would try the physical. Right, okay, let's give up sugar. Let's stop drinking alcohol. Let's try and honor my body. Let's do a little bit more exercise. But that wouldn't necessarily work. Then I'd be like, okay, right, let's try mental. Okay, journaling, love doing that. Add that to the to-do list. Then I would try meditation. Okay, fit that in as well. Let's try. And even that started to become more of a, must do this, expand into doing more and more of this. But it was only when I actually realized that the blend of physical, mental, and emotional were actually impacting how I was showing up healthily or unhealthily, and started addressing all the niggles that were emotionally wrong, that I started to really tick the realm of balance. So I started to look at the environments that I was operating within. So that one I just described, there was an expectation to show up full throttle. That was a very challenging environment, and actually it wasn't soft enough for the way I like to work. I have a value of kind leadership, and it wasn't that environment that chimed with me. So my values were being compromised. So it was creating extra stress, and I didn't know really how to manage it. So I had to take a pivotal decision to change that culture. That nothing wrong with it. It was right for a lot of people there. It wasn't right for me. So I had to just step out of it and make change. So as I started to realize that I had to do the mental, physical, and the emotional, I started to find work environments that worked for me. And I still wanted to soar in these different environments. But the biggest way I have achieved that is by really understanding what my highest contribution is, what my skills and my strengths are, and no longer trying to learn everything, be everything, do everything, and please everyone. I've just realized, okay, this is what I know. This is my highest contribution. This is how I'm going to show up in such a way where I am additive and useful and valuable. And I started to get a bit of grounded confidence in that. So walking into meetings and not feeling afraid that I wouldn't know the answer or the latest programmatic tech, whatever, not being an expert suddenly became okay, because I was in the room with this particular contribution, and I started to really own that and take pride in that. So my advice to the clients that I work with, or my daughter, is just never waste time on trying to improve your average. Leave the average there. Just focus on those shiny, natural strengths and do them more and more and more. Hone them, perfect them, magnify them, and tell everyone about them and show them. That is your magnificence. Because the more you do that, actually, bizarrely, the easier work becomes, and it all becomes a lot more fun. And it's bizarre, actually, that when you do that, you get time back and you end up feeling happier and more balanced.
I love that. Know your highest contribution. And to your point, then you can move into that role where you're able to bring that value to the table and not waste precious time doing those things that aren't as important. So we're all going to start to think about this for ourselves. So I am going to share my screen here now. Everybody give me a thumbs up if you can see this. And also just thank you, Barry, Blake. If you were not able to download this, which we're going to walk through together, please make sure that you can do it this way. So you can get it on your phone. You can hover over the QR code with your camera app, and then even take a screenshot of it. So when you have a few minutes and you're waiting in line to buy a gift this holiday season, you can ask yourself some of these questions and take that time to find your highest contribution. We also have the survey link here in case you couldn't get it from the chat for any reason. And but we'll put that in the chat again. But let's think about how we can look back to leap forward together. And we're going to start with confidence. For those of you who have been a part of many of these sessions in the past, we talk about what are those fearless fundamentals that we need to achieve our potential. And confidence is absolutely at the core of it. And Bianca relates so much to what you're talking about, is confidence in your strengths and in your superpowers. It's that ability to walk into that room and say, yeah, I can do this, and be okay if you don't have all the answers. Now, part of why this is so important that we start proactively focusing on this is that research shows that if you document your accomplishments on a regular basis, you are 40% more likely to feel confident when you go in to negotiate that raise or talk about why you deserve the promotion. So we've had previous sessions here talking about how critical it is to keep a confidence catalog. I'm curious if you keep that confidence catalog where you spend a few minutes on a weekly basis and just write down, whether it's in Apple Notes, OneNote, you name it, all of those things that you've done in the previous week that you should be proud of. Give me a thumbs up in the chat, or say yes in the chat, or give me a thumbs up. And if not, this could be your gift to yourself for the next year. So make a recurring calendar appointment, 5 minutes every Friday, and just look back on your week and write down a few bullets on what did you do that if somebody else did this who's in your life, you'd give them a high five, even though it's a little cheesy to high five, but you probably would anyway because they deserve it. And then if you get to that Friday and you have nothing to put down, that is your reminder that you are wasting your time in the wrong places. You're not moving your mission forward. And then you can look at your calendar for next week and time block in what is important. And certainly at this time of year, when we fast forward to December 2025, if you start this practice now, when you get to next year and you have to do your annual self-assessment, it will be the easiest thing you've ever done. All of your great accomplishments will be there in a list for you. And you could even use generative AI and who knows what kind of quantum technology by next year to put your list in there and put the questions in from your company's self-assessment and say, based on everything that I accomplished this year, what could I and should I say in response to this? So as we think about confidence, we also, just as Bianca was saying, we need to believe in ourselves that we can do it. Because women with higher self-efficacy, which is what that is, that self-belief, they're also far more likely to get promoted. And just as we talked about, just because you're burnt out does not mean that if you move up the ladder, if you get paid more, that you are going to be more burnt out. It might mean that you are less burnt out. So raise your hand and start to build some confidence in what it is that you do. So the first thing I want you to do is to take a moment and think about this past year. And we're going to reflect first. So what was a moment when you stepped out of your comfort zone and felt proud of your actions? Think about it. Write it down because the memory will be imprinted in your neural pathways differently if you physically write it down, even versus typing it into your computer on a list. So what is that moment? And if any of you are confident and comfortable and courageous enough, put it in the chat. Let's celebrate what it is that we're doing where we are taking that leap, taking that step. Because the more of those steps we take, the easier it will be and the faster we will go. Anyone want to volunteer when they stepped out of their comfort zone? Bianca, is there something you did this past year to step out of yours?
Well, I would say learning how to write a book, having been promoted into a new role, and at the same time certifying in a coaching qualification all in the same 3 months. I had to really just go, okay, universe is testing me. How the flip do I manage this? So I was very out of my comfort zone. And the way I managed that was literally just saying goodbye to all my friends for 3 months and going, sorry, you've got to prioritize work for a bit. So yeah, that was actually a big, bold, out of my comfort zone. And I'm glad I did it.
Congratulations, you should be. And
How
just for
about you?
all of you, remember that the body processes fear the same way if it's you being chased by a tiger or you doing something you're really excited about. So as Bianca had shown us that beautiful stress cycle that we go through, just know that it's something that you're excited about if you're holding yourself back. Okay, so the second thing that we want to do is think about what did you learn this year? So was there a limiting belief that you overcame this year? A limiting belief, as a reminder, is a story that we tell ourselves that has no evidence or data behind it, but we allow it to hold us back from achieving something that we want to do or putting ourselves out there in some way. So, is there a limiting belief that you overcame this year? And then how did it impact your confidence? So, take a moment to think about this and write it down if you can. And we'd certainly love to see in the chat if there are any contributions there in terms of those limiting beliefs that have held you back. I will tell you for myself, one of those limiting beliefs is that I don't know enough to write a book. Well, you know what? I know a lot. And I think I can help some people by also sharing some of the knowledge. And so it has actually helped me to say, this is something I can do as well. So Bianca, I feel like you are my soul sister from another continent with a far better accent. Oh, if only I had that one instead of my Staten Island accent, my whole life would be different. And then finally, I want us to think about the year forward. So what is your vision for the future? What skill or area of knowledge do you want to master next year so that you can boost your confidence further? And this is such an important thing to do because we can have these big goals and dreams, but as Bianca had said, if we don't have the SMART goals behind it, of a specific plan of who are we going to ask for help from? What podcast are we going to start listening to? What class are we going to sign up for? What coach are we going to work with? What am I just going to do time and time again? It's impossible to make this come to reality. So let's see, I see that we have some comments now in the chat. Every week in my weekly column, I do my best to write about what makes me and my readers most uncomfortable. Thank you, Nick. That is so important. Knowing that we're not all perfect is the best medicine for perfectionism, which is one of those things that just erodes our confidence all the time. And yes, Mary, there is nothing wrong with Staten Island accent. Thank you so much. I'm glad that you share that with me. And Jules, thank you for sharing that you've only been an employee and can't follow through on being an entrepreneur. So claim that confidence, and I am so happy to see that you do that. Now we're going to go through this one more time for now thinking about it as it relates to communication. And that is because if you practice assertive communication that we've focused on earlier this year, and we talked about how you could use generative AI for those conversations that give you those heebie-jeebies so that you can put yourself forward in the most clear, confident, assertive way. If you do this, you'll get a 25% improvement in team collaboration and leadership perception. That is so important for all of us. And it increases our credibility and the influence that we have. So if you are investing in yourself and taking control and building out a plan for yourself of what are you going to be working on, you will have 30% more leadership opportunities. And now we know that you should throw your hat in the ring and go for it. So when you look back on this past year, what did you effectively communicate, or when did you effectively communicate your ideas or your needs, and how'd it go? What was the outcome? Were you successful? If not, why not? What could you do differently next time? Take a moment, write that down. And again, if you're comfortable, share it in the chat. We want to hear from you. And then we want to go to learnings. So, did you get any feedback in the past year on your communication style? If so, how did you grow from it? Maybe it's a different learning for you around communication. Maybe it was about what works on how you can respond to someone who's interrupting you on a meeting. Or perhaps it's being more assertive and being clear, direct, and decisive and getting more comfortable with sharing your opinion, especially when you're in meetings with leaders, and then backing that up with research as necessary. Or maybe your learning was that it is okay to say, you know what, that's a good question that I haven't gotten before. Let me do some research into that and get back to you. Okay, these are all things that we can do. So again, write this down for yourself. And this is the way and the method that you can use this worksheet. And I would recommend, if you could, set aside 15 minutes to go through it and then allow that to help you set the stage for what 2025 will look like for you. It will make a massive difference in your year as long as you keep checking up on it and find an accountability partner who you can check up on. But this is how you want to take this time and think through each of these pieces. And then finally, on the communication front, I want you to think about, what do you want for the year ahead? So how are you going to better advocate for yourself? Even if you started, how are you going to do it better? How are you going to practice active listening, making sure that you're not interrupting other people or finishing their sentences for them? And if you don't have all the information, being comfortable asking a probing question to go deeper. Or how are you going to engage customers and colleagues better? Thinking about the questioning strategy that you can formulate in advance of a meeting so you get them talking and sharing rather than presenting an hour-long PowerPoint at them. Okay, so if anybody has a thought on this, we'd love to hear it, because this is one of those areas that as you continue to empower yourself, you will be able to go so much farther. But most importantly, as we talked about with Bianca, you will not be burnt out because of it. You're going to feel good about yourself rather than feeling like, oh, I should have done X, Y, and Z. And so the next section that you have on your activity guide, but that we're not going to go through in detail, is connections. And I want to use the remaining time that we have here to open up some breakout rooms so that we have the ability for all of you to make at least one new connection as we go into the year ahead. And think about, what can you share with the person. Now, if you absolutely don't want to be in a breakout room, you can drop off right now. But I promise you, this is what's so important for us, especially all of the women on here, is to be able to build our network. Research shows that it is our second level network. So not our closest friends, but those people that we meet through opportunities like this that will help us find that next opportunity, that will help us get to the next level. So we can't fear that. We need to embrace it. So with that, what we're going to do, we're going to open up the breakout rooms. You'll be in small groups, share your name, what it is that you do. And then based on that activity guide that we put out there, share the one thing you're most comfortable with sharing in the group.